Hi, welcome. This is Dr. John DeMartini. This is one of the most amazing and inspiring shows that you can listen into. If you want to be on the edge of your seats, if you want to open up your heart, if you want to expand your mind, and you want to meet incredible people, stay tuned because you're just about to experience a transformative radio show that will change your life. And you're listening to the Dr. Pat Show that's coming up right next.
Welcome to the Dr. Pat Show. Talk radio to thrive by. Powerful, inspiring, and coming to you live, bringing you stories of people like you and me, busting through and living life full out. Get ready to dare to wonder what your life would be like if you knew you could not fail. Hey, welcome everybody. I've been so thrilled. I've been waiting for Dr. Michael Meguid to join me here today. And, I've been thinking about this show. Of course, I prepare, I read the books, I look at things, but there's a story inside of a story inside of a story today.
That's correct.
Isn't that right? Look,
yes.
You have immersed yourself in what I like to call power and purpose, because certain industries, certain places you go, the medical profession, the psychology profession, and now especially the media profession, there are things that you run into and you ask yourself, where or how did I learn to prepare for this? In your case, this idea, right, of great joys, great sorrows, an immigrant's journey through the surgical residency is more than that to me.
I see.
It's more than that to me.
Tell
because
me,
it's not just about the journey. It's about what you've been able to learn from how difficult it was to identify people in your life to support you, to mentor you, and to get you to where you are today. So here's my question. Given everything you've done, and you joke that you were retired, but honestly, anybody writes a book, that is not retirement. Just want to clarify that right now. All right?
Right. Yes.
But here you are. And I read about what this was like for you. And it helped me understand why my grandfather would not tell his family he was born in Brazil and was a farmer.
Why not?
Well, the trials and tribulations of marrying into a family where that is not acceptable, and then coming to the United States at a time where that really wasn't a popular thing to be, an immigrant from Brazil. So in your journey, I'm so interested in what some of the challenges and obstacles you had to overcome, Dr. Michael, to bring you to this very moment.
Well, I was extremely fortunate. And I say that because I have observed other immigrants, doctors from other countries come to the United States. 30% of the doctors in the United States are immigrants. And I just want to say that I am concerned when we change the immigration policy, we might affect that. And we already have too few doctors.
Yeah.
And so I hope that doesn't affect the doctors coming from overseas. They come here exactly what you told me, for a purpose, to contribute to this society. And this society is such an open society. It is so welcoming society. It allows people to reach their potential with the help of other Americans who've come to this country, who were once immigrants, maybe one generation ago, or maybe two generations ago, and they hear it through their grandparents.
Yeah.
But I came with my wife, and all we had, we were youngsters, we were in our early 20s. All we had was our medical degrees and intern experience in England. And we had 2 steamer trunks. We were meant to be transient immigrants, okay? But we had our entire life in these steamer trunks. and we had $48 between us. And we thought that we were pretty rich when we landed in New York.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm lucky because I was given an opportunity to go to Harvard and be a surgical resident there. And that offer is not given to everybody.
No.
So I started at Mass General and then went, because I wanted to do research. Mass General really produces outstanding first-class doctors, surgeons or internists or whatever, that populates our field in the United States. But I wanted to also do some research because I think it's very critical for somebody to ask why. Okay, it's not good enough just to do something. You know, on the ship, we had to share our dining table with two Americans, elderly Americans who had come back from Yugoslavia. It was their lifetime dream to go back to the old country. And they owned a gas station in Ohio. And the first thing they told us is, wow, you are both doctors. My wife was going to the Boston's Children's Hospital as
Wow.
a resident. And they said, you're going to be very rich. And we had no idea what we were talking about because we didn't go into medicine to make money. We went into medicine to fulfill our dreams to help society. Now, it may have been a naive dream or a dream of young people, but we came to, because we loved the concept of America. We loved the idea of democracy. And we loved the idea that people could do anything provided they worked hard and reached their potential.
Yeah. See, what I love about this, your story, the book, the journey, is that I relate to it so deeply. Let me explain what I mean by that. When I was 17, I was kicked out of my house and I found myself homeless. I mean, pretty much was abandoned at age 5, put me in Catholic boarding school. But at 17, here I am, I found myself with whatever my parents could throw out on the lawn for me to take. Now, the youngster that I was in the era that you're talking about in the book, little crazy child I was, it taught me how to live in the moment of the moment of the moment, but not to abandon a dream. Now, why am I telling you that? Because I can't help from your book how very emotionally, physically, and you didn't say this, but I will say it, spiritually open you are. And how do I come to that conclusion? Because of the way you talk about and honor the people that help you get there. But I want to ask you this question. I know what the 70s were like. And by the way,
yes,
I happen to work at Bell Labs. That homelessness didn't last very long, and I got a job at, right?
That was great.
It was
in the
great.
70s at Bell Lab, you must have been there when they invented all these fantastic...
Everything. Yeah.
Yes.
I used to have bagels with Penzias, Honor Penzias, right? And I couldn't read. I couldn't write. I barely graduated high school. But there was something inside of me, and that's what I want to ask you. There had to be something inside of you to guide you, to direct you, and put you in front of us today.
Okay, that brings us back to my parents.
Yeah.
And if I may just talk a little bit about them.
Please.
My father was Egyptian, and he was thrown out of his family when he was 6 years old because his mother died and his father married another woman, and she had, her first pregnancy was a boy. And in an Egyptian society, there is nothing more precious than having a male, because he is going to take care of mother and the family. And having my father from another woman was like a competition to her son.
Yeah.
So he was put on a train from the village in Upper Egypt near Sudan border And he went to Cairo to stay with an aunt, but actually the aunt sold him, indentured him to a laborer. So he worked for a few months laboring, and he had to earn his living by his food by working, and he slept under the counter. And then he said, "This is not what I want to do." He ran away to educate himself, and he joined one of these famous madrasas that we hear about in the press. And eventually he worked his way up to be a high school teacher, and he then applied to the British Council. The British ruled Egypt. He applied to the British Council to go to England to learn to a teacher's training college. And that was 1935. Actually, he went there in 1930, but the story takes us to 1935, when my mother, who was German, had just finished high school in Germany and wanted to go to university. But Hitler said, no, women cannot go to university. They are to stay at home and produce babies for his imaginary Third Reich. He wanted as many males as possible. And at that time, there was a doctrine, a Nazi doctrine, of how to raise your children. And that doctrine was that you had as little contact with your children as possible, and as little nurturing with your children as possible, because the children should have the emotional connection to the state and not to the parents. So I was brought up having very little nurturing from my mother, but having a maid who nurtured me. Really, she couldn't nurture me. She was a 12-year-old kid. But my uncles and aunts, because I was the first male in the family, my father's family, and so they valued me. My Egyptian grandmother would drown me in kisses and hugs, and she was in a cloud of garlic and cumin because they had prepared the lunch every Friday. And then my mother said to my father, part of our marriage agreement when they got married in 1939 was that you would go back to Europe from Egypt for my education, so my mother could get educated. So my father found a job in England. So in 1948, at the age of 4, my mother said, "You're going to go to your German grandparents." And we said, "But we have grandparents here." And so we took this troop ship from Egypt to England, and then another troop ship to Germany.
Wow.
Where we met our German grandparents who spoke no Arabic, we spoke no German. My German grandfather was a Prussian disciplinarian, and my German grandmother was a loving woman. And then my mother disappeared. And as children, we didn't know where she had gone to. They believed in telling us as little as possible. So I hooked up with my German grandmother, who became the woman who nurtured me and loved me, who saw me through first grade, second grade, and third grade, and helped me with my schoolwork when I did it wrong. In those days, she would give me a slap, and she said,
I know the feeling.
You've got to do it right, okay? I mean, I'll give you an example. The figure 8 had to be written. When we were learning how to write German, after all, we'd been raised knowing how to write Arabic. And when I was writing figure 8, she wanted me to do this funny movement to write the figure 8. And when she wasn't looking, I would make 2 circles. But she would look down and see that it was 2 circles, and bang, I would get a dope slap.
Wow, yeah.
And then, but this was tough love.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she helped me. And I remember coming home from third grade with my grade card, and it was full of praises. And it said, "You are raising a perfect German child."
Mm.
And then suddenly my mother appears on the scene. But throughout those 3 years that she was gone, I was missing her. And my grandmother was not an affectionate woman. She was not a touchy, loving person like my Egyptian grandparents were. She was a nurturing. She sewed on my buttons and she made sure my
Yeah.
socks were darned. And in that sense, she was loving. And she became my emotional mother. And throughout my life, my biological mother was just mother. I called her mother. But my emotional mother was my grandmother, my German
Yeah.
grandmother.
Yeah. I
And
love this story because first of all, when I hear you speak about this, I so relate to the journey. And here's what I think about, and I'd love to hear you on this. All of that journey, a lot of it you and I share. But my mom, my stepmom used to say, if it don't kill you, it will make you stronger. And I wanted to ask you, how did those experiences shape you to become an amazing surgeon, amazing in the medical profession? You got to be around, study with, collaborate with the best of the best. And yet, that is not an easy journey for people that don't quite understand what that stepping stone career pathway is like. You've had to face hardship. How did your childhood help you face the hardships? As you say here, great joys, great sorrows.
right. You know, you have to decide at some stage. Let me tell you, when she left in the middle of the night at 4 o'clock in the morning without telling us, um, I cried and wept. My sister, who was 3 years older, started wetting her bed again. And my German grandfather, who was a disciplinarian, would physically beat us. We had a carpet beater, and there was no food there. So the situation was quite dire compared to where we came from. And so you have to decide, even as a child, am I going to wallow in this,
Yeah.
or am I going to overcome this and show the rest of the world that I can be better than they expect of me?
Mm.
And that drive, that determination was, I think, put into my genes by my Egyptian father, who always demanded more of me. I'd come home and say, "Oh, well, I got 6 out of 10 in my exam," and he would tell me, why would you not get 10? He was always demanding more of me, and I couldn't do it. And you know, that guy was on my shoulder like a monkey all my life
I know.
until I became a surgeon. And I actually said, "You know, Dad, I am now a surgeon. I am better than you. Now get off my back."
Ex-
But
See,
thank you. He was the one who drove me and helped me move right along.
yeah. If it wasn't for my stepmother, I wouldn't have learned that. I wouldn't have learned that lesson. And, how the universe, the God of your understanding, whatever people believe, there seems to be a pathway. And
Yes,
sometimes the hardships in our life are to prepare us from
yes.
what's to come. And
And
that's
there will
what
be more hardships in life, and you're going to have to
you're going
overcome
to
them.
have to. Yeah. But what I'm really struck by is how you honor the people in your profession. You see, this is not just a book, but it talks about a very cool harmony of two values. There are many values, but there are two that come to mind. One is understanding what empathy is and how to show it and when to show it. And the other one is how you do that and still stay strong and resilient. And I think that's part of the journey in the book. See, I can't even imagine what it would be like to lose a patient. Now,
Yes.
I work with women in addiction, and I've lost some of them in horrific ways, but that's not my occupation.
Yes. Yes.
What is that like for you to really create that harmony between
Yes.
great joys and great sorrows?
Well, first of all, you have to tell yourself, however hard it is, okay, and you have to endure, and that is both emotionally and morally. Endurance is feeling overwhelmed. But I discovered the true strength of endurance is not the absence of fatigue or pity, but it's the ability to keep going despite of it. And the compassion comes from realizing that my German grandmother, who had very little means, yet made sure I had adequate clothes. Her understanding, mere understanding that she was in a difficult position. And this gets translated into the patient world. When you're dealing with patients, you listen to them and you realize they are coming from a difficult position. And I am honored that they come to me and trust me. And I will do what I call the
Mm,
right thing for them.
yeah.
Okay?
Dr. McGee, let me ask you this question. I'll tell you what I was
Yeah.
struck by, and it's one little line in all of the
Yeah.
stuff they send me about you, right? The book, everything.
Yeah.
But there was something that got my attention to the point that you're talking about. I went back and read this. Yes, you have numerous national, international awards, but there's a point in here that I said, wait a minute, what did he do? He went to MIT to study nutrition to help cancer patients. That one line, I don't
Yes.
know what year you did that, but that one line told me a lot about everything you're talking about, everything in the book, but a very
Yeah.
holistic approach to who we
Yes.
are as humans.
Yes.
I was
You,
pleasantly
you,
surprised. But
you
what
know
got you there?
what got me there? I will tell you. I had a
Yeah.
patient who had fallen off a third story window. And when you come down from 3 stories, you land on concrete and you're really crushed. And he had bleeding in his abdomen. And so we
Hmm.
operated on him. It was 5 in the morning. And my residents called me saying, "We're taking him to the OR. See you there." And I rushed and I joined him in the OR. And I remember seeing his face. He was a beautiful black man. I say beautiful because his skin was ebony and
Yeah.
shining, and he was muscular, 18-year-old kid. And he had, and I was in my 30s, and I thought, wow, this guy's got a body I'll never have.
Yeah.
And he looked at me, and I could see in his eyes saying, am I going to die, or are you going to save me?" And I
Wow.
remember seeing it, and my transmission to him was, "I'm going to save you, okay? Hang in, kid. I'm going to operate on you and save you." And we put him to sleep immediately, what we call a crash anesthesia, because we didn't have time for all the fineries. And I very reluctantly, I stopped for a second before I took the knife and made a big slash in his abdomen to get into his abdomen to what could be bleeding when you fall. It could be the liver, it could be the spleen, it could be
Mm.
any of the major big organs. And he had also broken his left thigh, which was swollen like a big football. And the nurses had cradled it carefully. And when I opened his abdomen, I expected a huge amount of blood, but we
Yeah.
found
Yeah.
almost nothing.
Oh, you're kidding. Wow.
No, the blood that had been tested had tracked from his broken femur up the muscles in the leg to the abdomen, and we were just sampling just a little bit of blood. The most blood was in his thigh, and when I discovered that, the orthopedic team came in, and I checked absolutely everything again in the abdomen. I checked the liver, I checked the spleen, we checked the colon and the small bowel and the pancreas, and there was nothing. And I did it twice just to make sure I'm not overlooking something. And I closed the abdomen, and then the orthopedic team came in and they took over, and they fixed his spine. Fixed his femur, his leg.
Yeah.
And then, so he was on their service in the first bed in the ICU. And I would pass, his name was Leroy, and I would pass him every day going to see my own patients. And after 30 days, his bed was empty. And so I said to the nurses, where did Leroy go to? Thinking he'd gone to some ward or something like that. They said, no, Leroy died. And I was absolutely shocked. How could an 18-year-old kid who has a body better than mine die from a broken femur?
Wow.
So I went down into the medical record room and read his records. And he was put on a house diet. The problem is the tray was always put at the end of the bed, and he could never reach it. So he was sustained for 30 days on intravenous glucose, which was equivalent to 3 candy bars a day.
My gosh.
So his body provided all the nutrients he needed, and when he ran out of 30% of his body mass, he died. And I was so incredibly shocked that I called the head of the nutrition department at MIT, which was just across the river from where I was working. And I said, I want to attend some of the lectures. And he said, oh, yes, sure, come, you can attend as provided you take care of our students here. I said, no, that's a great deal. And a few days later, I had this frantic call from the admissions office saying, you have to come over here and sign your papers. I said, what papers? They said, your graduate papers. You're a graduate student here. I said, wait a minute, I'm a surgeon. So I went over there and signed them. And I found that I had to change my entire schedule. I had to go to lectures in the morning, do my elective operations on my patients in the afternoon, and any emergencies had to wait till the evening. And after 3 years, they passed me. I said, well, I have learned. I went to MIT to get the information I needed of how to feed a sick patient, knowing I was going to specialize in cancer. And cancer patients don't eat very well, but I want them to eat so as to remain healthy. And I want them to eat their own national food, be it burritos or be it sausages and sauerkraut, whatever they are used to eating.
Yes.
Okay. And I learned that information at MIT. And they said, oh, by the way, they waived the certificate saying, by the way, you also have the certificate, you have a PhD. I said, oh, okay. I didn't go there to get a PhD. I went to get the information. And it served me all my life. Do you know,
my gosh, I know.
MIT, I had 3 of the most famous professors in the world in nutrition. They worked for...
I did not know that.
They worked for the World Health Organization. In addition to being professors at MIT, teaching youngsters. And I was 35 or 36, and the other kids in the class were 18, 19, 20. And they must have thought, what is this old guy doing in our class, So I was leading a double life for 3 years. It was very taxing, but I managed to to push through it. And I did it by having people helping me. I went, we didn't have a textbook. they would give us at the end of a lecture a piece of paper saying, these are the papers published in the scientific literature that you have to read. And I went to the library to get the books, and the librarian said that they're out. And I came to a deal with the librarian. I said, listen, would you be able to Xerox them and send them to my home? Because I really am a surgeon. And they said, sure, we'll do that. And I said, how much can I pay you? They said, nothing. I said, no. I have to pay you for your. They said, okay, $5 a week will be fine.
Wow.
But without that help,
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to read the literature and keep up to date with my lecture notes and pass my exams.
Yeah. That's
You're
what I walk
right.
away with from
People help you.
Yeah, from the book. That's what stands out to me. I mean, there's so many other things in the book, and people, of course, can read the other books and find out more about you. But what I was really struck by is the ripple effect that you create to not just live, honor ethics, and so forth. Of course, that's a given, but to also understand the totality of the human experience.
Yeah.
And that's something that many people won't get that from the book until they read it. And it's a rarity, but it's so important. You know, this is a short interview and I want to thank you. But having gone through my own medical experience and know that I'm here today because both my medical MD doctor and one of the top natural doctors in the United States decided to work together.
Yes.
And figure it out.
Yes.
I hope we can do more of that.
Yes. I think it's an obligation for the doctor to work with the patient and do the right thing for the patient. It is not ego. It is not anything else. It is doing the right thing. And I tell you why I emphasize this. My son is a surgeon. And, you know, I think of him as a kid, but actually he is 50 years old and he's a professor of surgery. And he was interviewed recently. He had a podcast as to what it takes to be a surgeon. And the thing that struck me when he and I talked was, he said, Dad, the patient is the most important thing and you have to do the right thing. And I said, well, I'm glad I taught you something. And he said, yes, Dad. He used to take us every vacation, every holiday, you know, to the hospital. And we initially objected to it, but you said to me that these patients are in bed by themselves. Some of them don't have family and visiting, and you're the doctor, you have to go and see them.
Yeah.
And he does that.
Well, thank you so much. Number one, thank you so much of staying the course. Thank you for moving beyond the challenges of your life, which you beautifully describe in the book and also today. How do people get a copy of your book and how do they find out more about you?
Well, I have a website which is very simple. It's my name, Michael Meguid, and the last name is spelled M-E-G for George, U-I-D for David, michaelmeguid.com. If you go to Google and just put my name in, you will be guided to the website. But michaelmeguid.com is the website, and you can see all about me and my life and the previous. I said this is the fourth book, and you can start with the first book, which, by the way, is being made into a movie, into a TV series.
Are you kidding?
No.
Congratulations. When can we expect that? That's going to be exciting.
Oh, I'm reading the script right now, so I imagine it'll take a year or so. You know how these things work.
Yes, I do. But it's so needed because of what you're bringing forth in the world. You know, somebody was talking to me about hope the other day. And, you know, hope is very powerful.
Yes.
But belief and faith, belief in oneself is more powerful. You need to have them together.
Yes. Yes.
And you do.
Throughout my life, as I'm talking to you now, I realize that believing in myself and believing that I can do it.
Yep.
As they used to say, yes, you can, is important.
It
and
is.
If you have that faith in yourself, you can overcome many things.
Well, thank you for the reminder. Thank you for spending this time with us.
Yeah.
For those of you out there, this is, like we said, the fourth book. There are many others that you can look at, but really what's important here is when you go and get a copy of the book, there's so much more here. Whether you're looking at roots and branches or you're looking at so many other things, right? This book, Great Joy, Great Sorrow, An Immigrant's Journey Through Surgical Residency, this is the journey of how to build a strong resilience muscle and not sacrifice how much you care for humanity. Thank you so much, Doctor. Thank you for everything.
Thank you for inviting me to your show. It's a privilege.
You bet. It's great. For those of you out there, please go get the book, take a look at it, share it.
You
There are
can get
samples.
it at Amazon.
Amazon, perfect place. And just go in and Google it. Just put in Great Joy, Great Sorrow, and you all will get it. Thank you, Dr. Michael. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
All right. We'll see you all in a few minutes.